So we put in control,
Oh my gosh.
and we put in hydration,
Yep.
and that costs on average about 30 bucks an acre. The point is, if you can double production for an infrastructure cost of 30 bucks an acre, you've in essence just bought land for 30 bucks an
Oh
acre.
my goodness.
We move them every day, and so I've got to go around. I got to go around the field and make sure all the gates are up.
Okay.
The first thing I'm going to do is take the spark out.
For those that don't know, why in the world are you going to move them every day? Why? What do your neighbors say? They must think you're absolutely bats for moving these cows every day.
Oh, they do. They call me a bioterrorist and a typhoid Mary. That's why I got called the lunatic farmer.
So why be so crazy? Why be a lunatic and move animals every single day?
Well, because the grass grows in a very cyclical pattern. Because grass grows in a sigmoid curve, an S curve. So I call the bottom of the S, I call it diaper grass. The middle part I call teenage grass, and the top part, with senescence, I call that nursing home grass. And so if we're wanting to metabolize as much solar energy into biomass as possible, we want the grass in the teenage stage as much time as possible, not in either nursing home or diaper.
No nursing home grass.
No nursing home grass and no diaper grass. So the point is that the reason for the herbivore in nature is to prune as the forage hits this nursing home stage, is to prune that off to restart that rapid growth curve. I call her the biomass accumulation restart button.
Everybody remember that now.
Yeah, and now we'll put this one up. So yeah, the thing to realize is, as you look at this grass, most of the neighbors are still feeding hay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw that.
And this is our second rotation this spring.
And this is spring. Why?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Hay in spring.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of buttercups in other people's pastures, and a lot of erosion. Does that have something to do with it?
Well, of
cows
course,
being in the
yeah.
same place all the time.
Well, yeah, yeah. If you let that grass get some, get some strength to it, then it gets thicker and more, more ground cover.
Yeah.
And everything's about ground cover. You don't want denuded. Nature never wants the soil to be bare.
Yeah.
It wants it to be covered. Naked soil is not a good thing.
Nature's modest.
That's right. Nature's modest. That's exactly right.
So you have some buttercups in here every once in a while.
Yeah.
And some things that they don't eat. What ends up happening to that after you run them through here?
Well, actually, they'll probably eat those buttercups.
Oh, will they?
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens is we call this mob stalking herbivorous solar conversion lignified carbon sequestration fertilization, and when you mob stalk them like this, they actually eat a lot of things that they wouldn't normally eat, because they're eating very aggressively. You could call it primally if you want. So instead of being like, if you take your beloved out for an anniversary dinner at a white tablecloth restaurant, you'll probably spend 2 hours gazing at each other and talking about who raised this and who raised that, and you kind of create this wonderful experience.
Yeah.
As opposed to a bunch of new Marine recruits at Camp Lejeune that have just come in off a 10-mile hike, and they've got 2 hours of calisthenics looking at them, and they're going to they don't care how it tastes, they don't care what it is, they don't care who grew it, just feed me. And so the cows, when you move them every day like this in a tight group, they become like that.
Yeah.
And so their grazing selectivity is not so acute. They graze with much less selectivity.
Okay. That makes
cows
sense.
Cows have a palatability index just like you and I. They like ice cream better than liver and onions too.
How many cows you got in here, Joel?
There's about 120 in here.
How many cows?
And then
you got in all?
there's about 30 calves in here with
Oh,
them.
okay.
We're dropping a lot of calves right now.
150 cows altogether. How do you know how big of a paddock to give them?
Well, it's called the grazier's eye. It's experience.
Okay.
And so when the thing is, when you're moving them every day, you're actually monitoring your decisions every single day. So you get really good at it. You know, if you're only moving cows once a week, if you're only moving cows once a week, you're only getting a test. Sorry.
No, I don't want to go get it. That makes a lot more sense.
Give me your name.
Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
Justin. I know Justin, but okay, Rebecca. Okay. If you're only moving them once a week, you're only getting a feedback test. You know, once every 7 days. But if you're moving them every day, you're getting a feedback test every single day. So in a year, you're getting 365 tests. If you don't move them at all and you just do what most people do, just leave them on a pasture and continuously graze, you never have a test. and so, you never learn anything. So this is really critical for every day you move them. Then well, I gave them a little too much, a little too little, and pretty soon you begin to be able to read this and say, well, this is 20 cow day grass, 30 cow day grass. A cow day is our standard of measure, like inches to a carpenter, and like bushels to an orchardist. So our standard is the cow day. That's what one cow will eat in a day. Everything that you eat today, if you piled it on a plate, that'd be one person day of food. So a cow day is our standard measure. And so what we're doing is we're looking at how many cow days does an acre offer. An acre is roughly 5,000 square yards. It's a little bit smaller than that, but 5,000 is a lot easier to multiply in your head than 4,832. So 5,000 square yards is the measure that we use for the acre. Okay, this is tight up here. All right, they're all up here, so we'll move them in up here. The acre is 5,000 square yards. So if it's 20 cow days an acre and you have 40 cows, at 20 cow day grass, you would need 2 acres, which would be 10,000 square yards. So we always put every group of of cows to a cow equivalent. So like this herd here is 150 head with all the baby calves, but all those baby calves are only a month old.
Yeah.
So one calf is about 1/7 of a cow. So those 30 calves are only about 4 cows right now. In a month, there'll be about 10 cows.
Yeah.
Or say 8 cows, but anyway, you get the idea. So you look at this herd of 150 head, and actually there's some couple little stocker calves in there, some finishers. So we're going to call it, I'd call it about 120 cow equivalents. All right. So if this grass right here is 30 cow days, which is, I would say it's about 30 cow days. This is a 4 acre paddock. 4 times 30 cow days, 120. The herd's 120 cow days. Okay, and of course that's the way we measure it every single day to determine how much to give them. And then we.
All right. So tell me this, did you give them enough or too much yesterday? Or just right?
Just right, just right.
And how can you tell it's just right?
Well, I mean, there's still grass there. They're very content. They're ready to move, but they're very content. They're not sitting here belly aching and complaining.
So if they were bellowing, you're like, okay, I gotta give them a little more next time.
That's right, that's right. And again, that's part of the...
And it's not gonna kill them to go a little hungry one day.
No, it won't hurt them at all. I'm gonna pull this around here.
And it's not gonna hurt your pasture to give them too much pasture.
No.
Okay.
No. Let's see here. Let me do this.
So you can make a mistake either way.
Yeah, that's right. This is not a cult.
No, it's not a cult.
You're not going to lose your salvation by making a little mistake.
Yeah. Nobody's losing any salvation. Just do it. And like he says, Just do something, even if it's wrong.
You guys will step maybe right across this wire. Yep. Okay. Don't go away. Son, come on, gal. Come on. Son, come on, gal. Come on. Come on, gal. Son,
Didn't take much.
come on, gal. Son.
Baby's bringing up the rear.
Always exciting when you have all these little baby calves and they're not accustomed to it yet, so it takes them a little while to get used to it.
Are all your paddocks in place already like this one, or do you have to set up the line every day?
This is unusual. I'm gonna go over now and I'm gonna roll up. I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got four cross fences to roll up because
okay.
I took three days coming through here.
Okay.
So yeah, this is unusual in that that was all right, but yeah, normally you're setting up a cross fence. We have a bunch of first calf heifers.
Okay.
The big old mama herd.
Yeah.
That's over at another farm.
Okay.
And but we like to calve all the first timers here, so
Yeah,
if we
I
need to
don't
assist,
blame you.
we can do it. And yeah, a couple of these are only 48 hours. That one and that one that don't have a tag yet. They're just brand new. So yeah, it gets a little exciting with all the brand new calves.
Will they eventually make their way over to the moms?
Oh yeah,
Or do you have to herd
oh
them?
yeah, oh yeah. When they get hungry, they know where life is good. You bet.
So you never have to come out here and carry somebody.
Oh no, I picked up one last evening when I brought him over, but he'd wandered off clear down over there. I mean, he would have come back, but
Yeah.
there's no reason in putting him or his mom through the stress
Okay.
of not being able to find each other for a minute. So
That makes sense.
let's see, I'm trying to think here. We have several bulls. Yeah, but the bulls, we won't turn the bulls in until about June the 10th.
Okay.
Are you moving the bulls every day too, wherever they are?
No, they're moved. They're being moved about once every 4 or 5
Okay.
days a week.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it gets there's just 14 or 12 of them, so
Oh, okay.
they're just in some other paddocks.
Is this normally your job on the farm?
Yeah, I pretty much handle the egg mobile in the morning, and I handle the cow move here in the evening. Those are kind of my designated chores, and of course a lot of other things too. But that's kind of what I'm counted on for. Everybody kind of has their own thing, but it's nice to have somebody that's really in charge of something, because then everybody can feel good about that job's going to get done. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I see you have a lot of leftover hay, or do you? I mean,
Yeah.
is that leftover?
Yeah, it's left over.
It was so warm this year. Did you just keep them on pasture all year, all around?
No.
Or did you put them up?
No. We did have one group of about 300 stockers that we pretty much never fed hay to. I think we fed hay for about a week.
Oh my.
But otherwise, no.
Dumping his old water out. We're gonna scoot it over there to the new paddock. It's an automatic waterer. It's set to where it'll fill up, and once it gets to a certain point, it'll cut itself off, and when they drink it down, it'll fill back up.
That's a full flow valve. And that full flow valve, of course the ball floats,
That's cool.
but the full flow valve, you see how fast it's coming in. It's probably coming in at I don't know, 10 gallons a minute.
Yeah.
And so you can water a big herd of cows with a small trough if you have enough flow. And this water is coming from a mile up in the mountain
Nice.
from a pond. So we have 8 miles of water lines, gravity fed, from permaculture type ponds away up in
Sweet.
the mountain they're not in creeks, they're not in springs, they're just in valleys that catch winter runoff.
Nice.
And we have millions of gallons of water stored way up high, and we have 80 psi water here. I mean, it's like a fire hose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can show it to you.
That's water security right there.
Yeah, I can show it to you. Watch your camera here. It's gonna spew out right here. Now, this is all gravity. No pumps, no electricity, no nothing. And see, this is my point about this is what farmers should be developing. And so I really believe that as a result of us being here, the commons should increase, not decrease. Industrial farming, the commons decreases. It's exploitation and rape of the commons. But what we ought to be doing is our caress, our massage of the earth should actually stimulate the commons and leave more soil, more water, more air, and more cultural equity than there was before we came here. Okay, so here's
Preach.
Here's the pressure. This is just gravity. Okay. and we're up here.
What?
We're up here on a hill. You ought to see it down there in the bottom.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
it really. But that's, yeah, that's gravity. I always tell people, I say, that's gravity. When gravity quits, I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. You give up.
Yeah.
Put the whole trough in there, and what's the reasoning by that?
The reason is so that they can't all come and drink at one time.
Okay.
So the rule of thumb is you need to be able to water 2% at a time. So this is a group of 120 cow equivalents. So as long as as long as 3 can get around there at one time,
you're good.
they're not going to be stressed.
Okay.
So that's kind of the rule of thumb. And
Because they knock it over and things
yeah,
like that.
if 7 of them came up all of a sudden and drank, they could drink it faster than, even though it's coming in at 10 gallons a minute, they could still drink it faster. Then it's empty, then they knock it around, tip it over, and then you come out in the morning and you have a swamp, and they're thirsty.
And they're thirsty, yeah.
Right. Hey, little buddy. That one was born yesterday too. Hey, little buddy.
Here I come see.
Can you believe that people think that this is an evil critter here?
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the way the industry raises them, divorced from their historical role as a pruner of vegetation, they don't serve that function. And when you divorce them from that role, and instead of integrating with them in that role, and you segregate them from that role, then everything that's positive about the herbivore becomes a negative.
But when you're moving them every day, fresh green grass, plenty of room too.
Yeah.
Not only do you move them every day, you give them plenty of room.
Well, right now they're not as tight as they will be when this. They're calling for 2.5 inches of rain this weekend.
Okay.
If we get 2.5 inches of rain, this grass is gonna. And we're dry. We're really dry right now.
Okay.
And look at that lightning. If we get our 2.5 inches of rain this weekend, and then it goes to 80 like they're calling for next week, this grass is just going to explode.
Yeah.
And then this group of cows might be, instead of in 4 acres, they might be in 2 acres.
Yep.
So as the grass gets longer, as the cow days increase, then the size of the paddock shrinks.
You talked about lightning. What if you just have a crazy day? It's raining all day long, or you want to take a day off, or leave the farm. What do you do? How do you do it in that case?
Well, there's 2 ways to do it. One is, obviously, you could give them a 2-day paddock,
okay,
if you wanted to, but my favorite is have more people involved.
Yeah.
And then you can rotate. So you build community. And then you can rotate.
In bad weather, do you just forge through, or?
Oh yeah, I've got rain gear. If it was pouring down rain, I'd come out and in a rain suit, yellow rain suit, and I'd take care of them. I think that's the mother right there.
I think so too. She
And-
kind of is keeping it looking at him
Yeah,
though. Like
yeah.
maybe he's my guy.
Yeah.
And your neighbor's way over there, they say, look at Joel, that crazy lunatic farmer out in the rain again in his yellow suit.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they say this takes so much time,
Yeah.
but all these guys, they've got their cows out on 100 acres, 200 acres. They spend 3 hours a day this season for 3 months of the spring, just looking for cows. Yeah, I mean, you know, in a great big acreage, or,
Yeah.
you know,
Because they can't
she's
find
over hiding behind a bush. She's over, you know what, and they just run around their fields looking for cows all the time. I can come out here any time of day, and in 2 minutes I can see all of them. And so, you know, if one's having a problem, or I want to know, you know, what's going on. And every day they walk right past me like that, and I can see who's limping, who's getting ready to have a baby, who's, you know, what the deal is. So and so the bottom line here is that because of this, what we call the mob stocking, herbivorous solar conversion, lignified carbon sequestration, fertilization, we're getting way more production than you do if you continuously graze, like most people do.
Okay.
And so our county average is 80 cow days per acre. In other words, the average acre of grass will support 1 cow for 80 days a year, or 80 cows for 1 day a year.
Oh, that makes sense.
80 cow days a year. We're averaging 400 cow days per acre, and we've never planted a seed or bought a bag of chemical fertilizer.
So it ups the
So that,
productivity.
that's not to brag. That's not to brag. That is to give glory and honor to a beautiful choreography that works. And so the trick is, the challenge is to be observant enough and humble enough to duplicate this natural choreography on a commercial domestic production model.
Well, if I did my math right, that's like 4 times as productive.
That's right.
So that means 1 acre eventually is worth 4 acres to you. So that's the cheapest way I could think of to buy land.
Yeah, that's right. We lease 7 parcels of land in the area right now. Every one of them in the very first year, we double their production.
Yeah.
And that's by putting in electric fence and a water line, so we put in control,
Oh my gosh.
and we put in hydration.
Yep.
And that costs on average about $30 an acre.
Wow.
Okay, $30 to put in the whole,
Oh
you know,
my
the system. At $30, and we double production. The point is, if you can double production for an infrastructure cost of $30 an acre, you've in essence just bought land for $30 an acre.
Oh my goodness.
So that's why I always come around to saying the weak link is always management. Okay. You know, it's not, I mean, yeah, we have infrastructure and we buy machines and we do things, but that's never the weak link. The weak link is proper use, is proper management of what you have.
And if you think about that, if you're buying land for $30 an acre, what are you paying yourself for coming out here for 15 minutes a day, getting a nice little afternoon exercise?
We've run those figures too. We run those figures too, and the return to labor here for that little bit of time is a little bit south of $100 an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to work for for $80 an hour. I can work for $80 an hour. That's not a problem.
And you didn't have to pay taxes on it.
Didn't have to pay taxes on it. The production is quite astounding, and it's beautiful. You know, you can see them all. In case people are asking, you know, what's all this broom sage here? I thought that looked like that's poverty grass. Well, where we are right here, this is the neighbor's farm, and we bought this 2 years ago. So this is only our third. This is only our third season on this. The boundary was always over there at that tree line, and so this is only our 3rd year on this place. So we've been, as Daniel says, we've been nuking it with love, and so we've already put a lot of compost and stuff, and it's definitely on the run in the right direction.
I bet there was much more broom sage 2 years ago.
Yeah, oh yeah, way more, and it was real thin, and so now it's coming on. So we plan to dump another load of compost on here again this year.
Now, how does putting compost on it fight broom sage and other weeds?
Well, broom sedge is classified as a poverty grass. In other words, it grows where the soil is poor, infertile, and so if you increase the fertility, then those poverty type species don't grow, and better species like white clover and orchard grass and things will come on. So the vegetation on any piece of ground is a is like a real-time litmus test of the cumulative use of that land up until the moment you're looking at it. So you want to change the vegetation, change the management. Change the management, change the vegetation. So it's not about seeds, it's not about planting seeds, it's about changing the management so that the right plants will be favored. One of the things that happens in continuous grazing is that the real palatable species get overgrazed because the animals like them so much, and the unpalatable species get stronger and go to seed and propagate because the animals aren't grazing them. So you can have, you know, in a continuous grazed situation, you can have overgrazing and undergrazing in the same square yard. Mm-hmm. Two different kinds of plants.
Mm.
Yeah, these are my very sophisticated.
This is how you pull off fencing for $30 a
That's
acre.
right. That's right. Exactly right. Yep. Now, obviously, if
And
we
same thing with your roller there.
Yep. This is a homemade reel. These are used stainless steel welding wire spools. So, all right. Let's see here. So what I'll do here is I'll just stand here and roll this up.
Do you think you have a higher variety of grasses because of what you do?
Oh yeah, no question, no question. Yeah, as the season progresses, you know, you could go out here. I mean, I do this all the time with tours. You could go out here and lay down a square yard. Generally, I can find 15 species in that square yard. This is the Eggmobile down here, and it follows the cows about 4 days behind, and the chickens then scratch through the cow patties and eat out the fly larvae and sanitize like the egret on the rhino's nose, that sanitize the paddock behind the cows. So I just got to roll up this little short wire here.
You're rolling up yesterday's.
Yeah,
you're rolling up yesterday's and setting up tomorrow's?
This is actually 2 days ago.
Okay.
I actually don't have to set up one for tomorrow because tomorrow's the same situation. This is an odd situation where we've got two days of proper size.
Let's check out the hard-working dinos. Good job, guys. Keep it up. Oh, look. Look. That's it. They've been scratching a manure patty right there. And do you see what he's talking about? They've spread the fertilizer around. Look, they spread the fertilizer around. There's not any fly larvae in it this time of the year, but they would get that. Not only do they sanitize the pasture and fertilize, they give you eggs. Hey man, how you doing?
Doing good, how are you?
Good.
Of course, this ground over here is harder than ours because we've taken ours 1961 when we came. Mom and Dad came, bought it. I was a little kid. We averaged 1% organic matter. Today we average 8. Woo! So that's a lot of carbon sequestration.
So then I wonder how much more improved it'll be Daniel's generation.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
his children.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's exciting to contemplate. It's really exciting to contemplate something that gets better all the time instead of gets worse all the time.
Yeah.
The orthodoxy of the industry, their whole life revolves around sickness, disease, scarcity, all this. You go to an average ag conference and 90% of the discussions are about sickness, disease, bad prices, losses, whatever. And it's really fun to be able to see things improve and get better every single year, knowing that trajectory just continues to.
Do you have to use any medications?
You mean on me or the animals?
Damn.
On the animals?
Yeah.
Not really.
Worm them? You gotta worm them?
No, we don't worm them.
Okay.
Wormer's the Eggmobile.
That's pretty typical. Everybody worms the cow.
Yeah. And
Their wormers, the Eggmobile. I want everybody to catch that. Their wormers is the Eggmobile.
So instead of spending thousands of dollars on grubicides and parasiticides, we just collect $100,000 worth of eggs as a byproduct of the pasture sanitation program.
For you.
That's the definition of a holon. You know, in holonic businesses, a holon is where you take a waste stream that has no value,
Okay.
and you create an enterprise out of it. The Eggmobile is a perfect example. You take the grasshoppers and crickets and worms that have no value,
yeah.
and you turn those into eggs. That's a lot of value. You can actually grow more animal protein per acre in insects than you can meat and milk.
Nice.
So if you can turn all that animal protein into eggs, you've just doubled your income per acre without sacrificing anything. So that's win-win. And the cows are healthier.
So how it keeps the cows healthy because they're spreading the manure, they're eating the flies.
Right.
So they're sanitizing the pasture.
That's right. That's right. That's a biological pasture sanitation program.
Nice.
And of course, the chickens are dead-end hosts for any pathogen that would affect the cow. So when they pick up little oocysts and little egg casings and stuff, and they're scratching and pecking around that are bovine oriented, the chickens kill them. So because it's an inhospitable host, and it's good to cover your farm with inhospitable hosts for disease and have confused pathogens.
Now I know you have interns in the summer. Could an intern do this by himself by the end of the summer? Can you learn it that fast?
I would say yes. Yes, they could if they did it every day. But our interns want to learn so many things. You know, the apprentices, we don't have any problem turning the apprentices loose on setting up paddocks. This is the most sophisticated thing we do on this farm, is paddock setup. How big an area to give that? Because the thing is, I can tell you all day about it. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. Until you actually set it up and test yourself, you know, all the book learning in the world won't do it to you. Even my teaching won't do it to you. You've got to get out and do it yourself. And so generally, by the time they're here and doing all the other things and we're rotating them through the program, everybody gets a chance to do everything. None of the interns actually do this enough to be tested enough to feel confident enough for me to feel comfortable enough to actually say, go out and set up cross fences for that herd of cows. But they understand it, they get the principle, and as soon as they're, you know, actually in charge, you can learn pretty quick.
So for somebody out there, most of my people are small homesteading type. They have a few goats, a few sheep, or a few cows. What would you tell them to get them over that hump? To start moving them every day?
Yeah.
To get them over any kind of fear they might have?
Yeah, well, the thing is, what can you hurt? The only thing you can do is make them a little hungry one day, or waste a little grass one day. That's the worst that'll happen. And as soon as you start, you know, those daily tests, you know, you'll be able to tell by the way the animal acts, by the way the manure looks, all those things. You'll be able to tell real quick if you've hit it about right. And yeah, it's pretty quick coming when you're in charge. That's right, pretty quick coming. So a lot of new things, sometimes the way over the hump is to ask the question, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, I gotta get the salt box. You know, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, the worst thing that can happen is that you make them a little hungry one day, or you waste some grass another day. That's not, neither one of those is a disaster, especially since you're not going to do it every day. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to make the same mistake every day, at least unless you're not very bright.
Especially given the potential reward. Less health issues, more productivity, quadrupling the production of your land.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Those are pretty good returns. What's interesting is that goats, because they want to eat from their shoulders up, they actually don't have to be moved every day, like a cow or a sheep, which grazes over its own excrement.
Okay.
Goats are primarily browsers. 70 to 80% of what a goat eats, they eat above their shoulders.
Nice.
And what's interesting from an ecology standpoint is, this is why goats are such tremendous land upgraders from brush to grass, is because the metabolism of bushes and brambles and thistles and stuff like that, weeds, the metabolism of those species is way slower than grass. And so if you graze something, the grass is going to come back way faster in its energy cycle than the woody species and the weeds. So the goats, because they're browsing up on the weedy species and up on the brambles and the brush, they are they're taking the foliage, they're weakening these slower metabolism plants. And so if you only rest it long enough for the grass to come back and put the goats back in, the brush has not recuperated. And that's why goats tend to kill brush and bring on grass. So here's the conundrum with goat. The conundrum is that it takes about 5 years to begin to like goats. Keeping them in, starting to enjoy them. And so when it takes about 5 years to learn to love your goats and feel comfortable with them. And that's about how long it takes for the brush to die. And so what happens at about 5 years, you learn to like your goats, you learn to control them and and enjoy them, but they've now eaten themselves out of their habitat. And then you turn the goats from a browser into a grazer. And when that happens, now you start with parasites, retained placentas, mastitis, hoof problems, all sorts of digestive health and skeletal problems because their feed is too rich. It's like they're on candy bars all the time. And so that's the conundrum with goats, is that they eat themselves out of their habitat. Right when you start to like them.
Wow.
And so sustainable goat operations that have done goats long term and sustainably, typically start on their own place, upgrade it, and then they go to a neighbor's place and begin a kind of a rent-a-goat thing, have goats will kill your weeds kind of thing. And go to other acreage. That's how historically the goat has filled that role. One of the problems is that in the domestic production thing, we tend to be very single species oriented. Well, if you think of the way these silvopastures were 600 years ago, I mean, they had deer, bison, elk, all sorts of beavers, all sorts of herbivorous kind of critters. Herbivores, and we go in here and, well, I like sheep. Well, I like goats. I like cows. And what happens is we tend to go with one species that we like instead of having multi-species. Now here, we've been able to fudge a little bit. Our second species is the poultry. So we have the cow and the bird. You could have a bird and a goat. You could have a goat and a sheep. You could have a goat and a cow. But the point is, almost nothing in nature is single speciated. And so it's just a fact of ecology that when you start your little farmstead, you just have to understand. This is why, you know, some of the worst ecology on the planet are horse paddocks. Oh my, all these, you know, Sierra Club members that have their pet horse and it's got a denuded, you know, paddock out back. It's horrible.
Is that the one amendment you give them?
That's the
Kelp.
one thing we do. Yeah, it's kelp and C90 sea salt,
Okay.
and Fur Trail's, believe it or not, poultry NutriBalancer.
Okay.
And
So
that's what-
3 things.
and sometimes they go a week and don't touch it, and other times, like right now, I think probably because all these heifers are calving and they've got all sorts of, you know, mineral and hormonal issues as they lactate for the first time. Right now they're putting it away. But look at I mean, these are first calf heifers. Look at the condition. Look at the condition on these
They're
guys.
amazing.
I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.